Uh, Pretty good. Not too bad. Busy. Been busy lately. But still, we're back with some wrestling. We're back to talk some wrestling. I've been really into wrestling lately. I'm still going with the, seeing what's happening throughout the whole, especially with what's going on right now with NXT. You have SummerSlam just right around the corner. But we've talked about this. So this is actually kind of like a part one. We wanted to talk about rivals and debate some, rivals as well, or just overall what we feel like is one of the, some of the greatest rivals of all time. Just overall, some of the greatest factions of all time. That's including WCW and all other wrestling factions as well. So I thought this would be a fun one today, where we're going to be talking about, we're going to debating probably who's better, what's the better faction, and that's either NWO or DX. You also have rivals that we're going to talk about: Stone Cold versus Bret Hart, an underrated rival in my opinion. A lot of people don't talk about that one. And then also a great one: Trish Stratus versus Lita, and what they really brought to the women's division. And that's a great one as well. So we're going to be talking about that. This is part one. And of course, we'll be getting into other rivals in the future. But I think this is a fun one today, Sandra. So which one do you think we should talk about? Which one out of those three do you think we should talk about right now?
Let's start with Trish and Lita.
Good, good. I was actually thinking that as well. Trish and Lita, man. Early 2000s, a little almost, I think, yeah, the early 2000s basically. And this is a rivalry which is cool because they're like besties in real life. They both introduced each other at the Hall of Fame. Well, Lita, I don't think Lita did. But they're best friends. Even I think Lita is the godmother of Trish's kids. So it's really cool to see this, this rivalry blossom into a friendship, because they weren't friends in the beginning. They became very friendly later on. So what does this rivalry mean to you, Sandra? How do you, and out of the two, who is your favorite?
So I started watching wrestling back in the 90s and always seen the women as valet or girly girly and nothing that got into the ring
Yeah.
until I saw Lita. Lita was my first girl crush, literally. I saw her the first time was, I think it's 1999. I want to see Survivor Series in Detroit.
Hmm.
She did the Sunday Night Heat with oh my God, what was his name?
They had the
Um,
same. They had the same attire.
yes.
Let me look that up quick. Yeah, Lita's
She,
partner.
oh my God, I cannot think about the name right now.
I'll get it right
Uh,
now.
Anyway, so I saw her and she was my girl because she was really like tomboy looking, dress up. She's not like in the skimpy little thing that all of them were wearing. And she just kicked ass. And that was like, okay, that's it. That's my girl. There's no ifs and buts about it. So that was my
S
girl. Esther
Essa
Rios.
Rios. Essa
Yes,
Rios. Yes, and you're right. Sunday Night
exactly.
Heat. Man, Sunday Night Heat. That's crazy. Remember,
Yes.
man. Remember Sunday Night Heat. That's insane. And then I'm surprised. Yeah, that screams nostalgia for sure.
Yes.
Um, you're absolutely right. Like Lita had, when she came in, she was paired with Essa. They had both like the same attire, same kind of heat, so to speak, pun intended. But Lita just had this whole swagger. She had her own thing. She was a high flyer. You took her seriously, and you're absolutely right. She was, when it came to the women's division at the time. And new people who are listening and new people who are watching WWE. The women's division is a lot better than back in the day. It's still not the greatest, but it's a hell of a lot better. You even have women now headlining WrestleMania Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair. But back in the day, it was Sable, it was Sunny. You know, it was these women that used a lot of their sexuality and a lot of, it was more, it was not taken seriously. These women weren't like, primetime wrestlers. They were more of eye candy. I mean, you had puppy matches, bra and panty matches, catered to the men basically. So, and Vince McMahon's a big old perv. We all know that. It just wasn't what it was. It wasn't taken seriously. Now before Trish and Lita, it was taken seriously. I think you have to, before you talk about this rivalry, you talk about these two legends. You talk about another legend. You talk about China, because China brought that ferocity, that legitimacy, even though the men were reluctant to lose to her, but it made sense. She was that big of a star to make sense that she would win against actual men. So so she paved the way basically, and but Lita had, I mean, she was paired with the Hardys. She was with the, and like it made absolute sense. She did her moonsaults. She was a very risk taking wrestler. She was so fun to watch. So Lita was very awesome to me, but of course, I absolutely love Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus was, man, back in the day, I was in love with Trish Stratus. Very beautiful woman. She came in a kind of a bodybuilder background. She was a model. Absolutely gorgeous. And she was more of the manager type. She was more of the distraction. Of course, the whole storyline with her and Mr. McMahon. She wasn't treated as seriously. Not as seriously as Lita. Her wrestling ability in the beginning was okay. It wasn't by far not the best. Definitely not in Lita's level. But as you go, Lita, I don't think a lot of people know that Lita had quite a bit of injuries in her career. She had to take time off, I think twice. I believe twice. And that actually gave room, because she was probably, if she wasn't injured, she would probably be more of the face of the two, because she probably would have done more accomplishments. But because she got injured, Trish Trish took over. Trish got better. She started getting better and better and better as she went. What I really appreciate with Trish is she wanted to get better. She put in the work. And when you have somebody who's just on a whole different level like Lita, and Trish is still in the bottom, but yet she has this opportunity to work her way up, then you have a rivalry because now they're in equal footing. So Trish and Lita, man, there's a great documentary on WWE at Peacock that really go over the rivalry. These are the first two women who I believe headline a Raw. I believe Sandra.
Yes, you are
Yeah,
correct.
main event. So my girl was Trish. Even though I loved Lita, I liked the underdog story of Trish, where I was blown away of how rapidly she got better, her signature moves, and if you guys have, she had like her final match with Lita where she won the belt, but then she came back and then she had her final match with Charlotte Flair. If you haven't seen the match with her and Charlotte Flair, my God, absolute, like even I was like surprised on how good Trish was that night against the Queen, Charlotte Flair, who is Ric Flair's daughter. But going back to Lita and Trish, uh, these two just had that chemistry. These two were I hate to using this example, but at the time of that women's division, it was like a Stone Cold Rock kind of scenario. It was very entertaining, a lot of technical moves, pretty great storyline. So I would have to go out of the two, Sandra. Out of the two, I think Trish Stratus deserves. I think she deserves all the. I think she deserved it. I think she deserved the accolades. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, as funny as it sounds, because Trish is Canadian like me, so you would think I
Hmm.
would go with Trish, but
She had great pops when she
she
in
did.
Canada for
She
great
did, because
pops. Yeah.
she was a hometown girl from,
Hmm.
especially from Toronto. But for me, Trish got better because of Lita.
Hmm.
When she started, she was the manager for TNT, Test and Albert,
Yes,
as you
that's right.
remember that. And then when
R.I.P.
she,
Test too, man. R.I.P. Test.
yes,
Hmm.
and then also Lita got injured, but also the way Lita wrestled, that was what prone her to be injured more, because she was like extreme, like the Hardy Boys. Nothing
Oh,
against Trish,
yeah.
but you have to admit the way they both wrestled, Lita was more dangerous, because on that famous um, main event Raw, when she flew on Trish, and that's when she broke her neck.
You could see it clearly too. I mean,
Exactly.
rewatching that I was like, oh my god, like you could just tell it was a bad impact.
It
You
was.
saw it. It was a car crash, basically.
It was. So yes, Lita ended up not being the face because she was injured and
Hmm.
she had to rest. And then Trish, she's a great wrestler, don't get me wrong, but she was more safety than Lita.
Yeah.
So that's why she was able to continue. But out of all the girls that was there at that time, there's no if and buts about it. Okay, you can put Jackie. Jackie was able to
I was gonna
wrestle.
say I really like Jacqueline. Jacqueline was great.
Jacqueline was good.
Molly
Victoria was
Holly.
awesome. Molly
y-
Holly, they were wrestlers. And
yes.
when you asked them to do the puppy match and the jello match and the chocolate pudding match, they
I
were
think
not.
there was one too for Thanksgiving. It was what the gravy match.
Yes,
It would not fly today whatsoever.
it
I
would
enjoyed
not.
it when I was a kid, but it just would not fly today.
Correct, but that is just so, I'm gonna just put it up, degrading, that
Yes.
you can let a guy have a 15-minute match, and God knows there was like very boring and bad matches with men. Then
Thank you.
if you left the
Mm-hmm.
girl, it would have been better.
No, thank you for pointing that out, though. So a lot of people don't know when we talk about Trish and Lita, doesn't mean they were having 25-minute, 20-minute matches. They were having like 5, 10, maybe 10-minute
Yes,
matches. A lot of these women matches would not even be would barely be 5 minutes. They were that short, and I think that's why you don't get a lot of like because we're Jacqueline, Molly Holly, even China, like
yes,
they never got that push. They were never able to at least work a great match because they had less time. Because everybody knows that wrestling is a storytelling element to it. When you're in the ring, there's a story to tell, and you could see that. We'll get into that when we get into the Stone Cold and Bret Hart and why I say that. But absolutely right. The time they had was ridiculous. It was just it was really disrespectful. The only time they got respect, it's sad to say that Trish and Lita were the big women's division stars when there was a lot of underrated stars underneath them that wasn't getting the same shine. But what you're saying, I absolutely agree. Like Lita was the high flyer, risk taking, extreme. Trish more of like the brawler. Had a couple great moves. You know, I really like the stratosphere. I think that's a great move. That's what makes it work, though. Sandra is the complete opposite. They are.
yes.
And then they talk about that. You know, Lita, when Trish came in, like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. But then when Trish saw Lita, oh my God, she's so great and beautiful. The rivals make you better, and it makes the promotion better. It makes everything better. It just takes it to another level. So, am I gonna say that Trish and Lita were like on Rock and Stone Cold's level of like popularity? No, that just wasn't. That just not factual. But was it? Were they for the women's division? Yeah, they were bringing a lot of eyes and a lot of oohs and ahs wrestling wise in their matches. So you brought in that first injury that Lita had. It was a good match, but you know they had to really. She obviously she was hurt. I think though, so she had a second injury, if I recall. Which one was that? Do you remember that one?
I don't remember because, to be honest, um, as much as I love her, and they were like the best two women at that time, I don't like what they did with her afterwards when they paired her with the whole storyline with Matt Hardy and then with Edge, and they completely changed her.
Oh,
And
with Lita.
yes, with Lita, and that totally like threw me off, but that's the way
You didn't
WWE
like the
was.
pairing with the Hardy Boys?
No, with the Hardy Boys, yes, because she was wrestler when it
Yeah.
was the whole thing like, oh, you cheated on Matt with Edge and the whole
Oh,
like
bringing the
outside.
personal stuff
Yes,
in. Yeah.
that's what I didn't
WWE
like.
does it all the time. It's ridiculous. So let's talk a little bit about like some of the controversy kind of storylines here. Obviously, yeah, that one's and they made her a heel. You know, they made her a heel. I don't like when they do it because nowadays, especially nowadays, because we know everything about these wrestlers in social media, their breakups, their addictions, this and that. So it's really a low blow when you're bringing that into like storylines like that. So Lita's human. She did, cheat on my boy Matt. I thought when she was with the Hardys, it was so fun to watch, especially with the rivalry between the Dudley boys, um,
Edge and
the
Christian.
Edge and Christian. It was just always so entertaining. Like those were the top tag teams in like the division at the time. I really liked how she copied her style, and I think she evolved more when she went to the Hardys, because of course she uses what's it called, Twist of Fate, as
Yep.
one of her signature finishers. I the only That's the only problem I have with Lita is I wish she would have used her original, like some originality on her finishers. I like how she did take that in the beginning, but later on I would have liked to see a different finisher from her.
But
Uh,
hold on a second. You have to remember, and that I cannot remember who said that in one of the documentary. WWE stopped the women for doing high dangerous moves. They were not letting them. So that could have been one of the reason why Lita couldn't do whatever she wanted, because she came from Mexican luchadores wrestling. And then
exactly.
she went into ECW. So she was able to do those, but WWE always stopped the women until now to do that, because they even told Charlotte Flair she couldn't do her moonsault until she decided, you know what, I'm breaking the rules, I'm gonna do it, and she did it.
It's pro.
So
It's a little bit of probably protecting the wrestlers too, so they can keep going. They don't have an excuse for injuries. WWE is like that. They clamp down on a lot of stuff. You're absolutely right. She has a lot of lucha libre masks too. She used to
yeah,
own a lot. So yeah, you're absolutely right on that one. They probably clamped down her.
I think so.
Probably, most likely. I mean, I could see Vince, especially how what you're seeing from Vince today and all the stuff that's going on, because he's older. He's not held back and he's not reserved. I think he's just like, whatever. I'm gonna do what I do. You're seeing Vince. You're seeing how Vince was probably all throughout. His
But
his
and
his chairman.
also, just think about it. When you had Lita and Trish, they could match each other's wrestling. But
Yeah.
if you had like a Sable against Lita, what are you supposed to do? Lita cannot be a full wrestler against Sable, but Sable doesn't have any moves.
Yeah.
And
So
that was also the fight that you had with the women's back in the day. You didn't have a lot of them who had like the actual wrestling skills. So you
yes,
couldn't put a freaking great match when it was not two top of the women's division. And
absolutely.
also remember, back in the day, they were divas.
Yes, there were the Divas Championship belt that's now retired. Absolutely, that goes for the men too. A lot of especially older Hulk Hogan. A lot of the wrestlers had to do more take more of the load of the wrestling aspect of it to make it look good. The final match was Stone Cold and The Rock. Stone Cold was in a hospital for like 3 days prior to that, or 2 days. So he was very fatigued and he didn't give his best match. So The Rock had to do more of the workload. So when you have a Lita and Sable, you know, it's sad because Lita was before her time. If she was in the division of today's wrestlers, whew, man, would it
Yeah.
be wonderful. Like you want a main event, you get Lita in there because she could bring something to the table. Even Trish, I think Trish, prime Trish, when she's gotten better, not like beginning Trish. Right now, Trish, obviously saw it with Charlotte Flair. I think that was one of the best matches I've ever seen, and it was an older in the past diva wrestler against a now champion, Charlotte Flair, and they put in on a fantastic match. So the timing is always, Lita. I think she was done after she retired, and her and Trish retired. I think a couple months apart from each other, the same year. They both went out, which is crazy. They both said, "I'm done," you know. And then I don't think Lita ever stepped in the ring again. And you don't really see her in anything,
Well,
honestly.
she came back. She came back with the Royal Rumble when it was the women's Royal
Oh,
Rumble. She
oh,
came
did they?
back to
What
that.
do you remember?
Yes,
What year that was?
20. I want to say the first. The first. It was the first one. It
Oh, was
has
it
to be like 2016,
16, 2016?
2017.
Because I've been going back and watching a lot of the Royal Rumbles. I caught a couple of the women's. I definitely caught Becky
Yes,
Lynch's win.
because she came back because in her costume she had the hashtag Me Too on her
Oh,
belt or like her t-shirt or like her pants.
bring that
Um,
politics in there.
yes, yeah. So she
um,
did come back for that.
okay, okay. I'm still working on those Royal Rumbles. I love the Royal Rumbles. Ugh, I'm starting to think Royal Rumbles are better than WrestleManias. I'm starting to really
They're
think
more exciting,
they're more fun. Yeah, absolutely, more fun. S-
especially if you don't read the spoiler of who's coming in.
so hard nowadays. We all knew Edge was gonna come out, so
Well,
so
I
yeah.
know it's not in the topic, but I have to admit the day the Royal Rumble 2016 when AJ Styles came, I did not know he was coming.
I
I
saw
was
that one.
literally I was literally jumping up and down in my living room because I have been an AJ Styles fan for a long time. And I knew he was the only one that could come into WWE and be a major star because he always been a major star. So for me, that surprise was the best.
You know what's crazy though is he's got such a crowd reaction in that Royal Rumble. They were cheering for him. Unfortunately, he went out. That hype kind of died as he kept wrestling for the WWE. It's a problem with the WWE. They don't know how to do their booking. They don't capitalize on superstars. We're gonna get into a video about that because there's some stuff going on today. I'm really feeling like the Vince might sell the WWE because I don't know what the hell they're doing over there.
That's another episode that we want to talk about.
We gotta, yeah, we'll do that probably next one because I'm sure there's gonna be more news coming out, more releases. Absolutely insane. Okay, so let's get back to Trish and Lita, and let's talk about Trish's controversy real quick. Okay, Trish, um, the Vince McMahon angle. Vince always likes to cheat in front of his wife on national TV. I don't doubt that Vince has had affairs. It's recorded. You can look it up. Like there's a lot of dirty stuff going on in WWE. I mean, how can it not be? It's a properties organization. It's a business. There's always stuff going on. So the most controversial thing about that storyline, it's cool though that I think it was like, was it WrestleMania when it was Vince versus Shane O'Mac, Stephanie,
Yeah, I
and then
think
Trish was with Vince and then like went
she
against him and
yeah.
chased Stephanie. Stephanie's a terrible wrestler, by the way. Chased Stephanie up the ramp. There was one particular scene, I believe it was Raw, and Trish does everything Mr. McMahon wants her to do. He tells her to get on all four, walk on all four, and bark like a dog. Boy, was that. And this is early years Trish. This is early years Trish, but still, that was bad. That was terrible. So, Lita with her actually cheating and then bringing into the storyline. Trish having to go on four and bark like a dog and still be there was a hell of a lot of promos where they had her really sexualized, especially against the Dudley Boys. I remember the one segment when she was in lingerie. It was the tables, the TLC. But the cool moment though is I do remember that Bubba Ray puts Trish into a table. Remember the turn gets her from the top and then right into the table. That's cool. Like she took that bump, which is awesome.
Yeah, she did.
So I think they misuse a lot of Lita and Trish over the years storyline. I think what I did appreciate though is when they did go at each other, it was not really a gimmick in there. It was more like they didn't like each other, or one thought they did use the Lita was a little bit jealous of Trish, and then they would have their matches. So I really appreciate that. It was just straightforward on that point. So I'm a big. I love both women. I love both women. It's a shame that and I do remember Lita. The second injury was she. It was a leg injury or an ankle.
It was a knee injury, right?
It was a knee injury.
Yeah.
So most of their matches were really good. Their final match was for the championship. That was loud. Believe that was in Toronto, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
Oh my god, great crowd reaction, really fun. It got better as it went along. I think the finish was great too. I think it was right to get Trish that win in Toronto. I never like how wrestlers in their hometown, especially if it's their final match, Bret Hart, lose. It's Stone. No, Stone Cold won, but they turned him heel in his hometown, which I never really liked on that particular WrestleMania. So I did appreciate Trish winning that, but there was that one match where Lita did hurt her knee. I think that was their worst match because they had to come up with the finish, and you could just see it was you could just see that Lita couldn't do it. A lot of botches or a lot of just trying to figure out what how to end it. So I think that was their worst match, but but the final match that they had, I think, was very beautiful. It really culminates their friendship, and I think these two women, they with them and China, and I would even say Jacqueline, because I know a lot of people appreciate Jacqueline, Molly Holly, they were the first footsteps to a better division in wrestling. So I love both. I'm gonna go Trish on this one. When it comes to what out of the two, which one would I prefer? Because I think I really liked Trish, and I really liked towards the end of her career, and her outfits were great. She started different outfits. I think she said she was tired of wearing. I think she what kind of outfit she had? She wore. They asked her why she wore long pants when she got later on down the road. She said she wore long pants because she wanted to be taken seriously. She wanted to be taken seriously as a wrestler. I think Lita had the natural born athleticism, but I think Trish really had to work at being taken seriously and really had to work at her wrestling. And I applaud her because I think she did a hell of a job for her career. Both women did. Both women are Hall of Famers, and rightfully so. So what are your final thoughts on this rivalry, Sandra?
Well, I knew you were going to get with Trish because she was your first love. So you can never break off your first love.
Hey, I gotta say, but she put in the work. She could have
She did.
just been a diva, but I
No,
consider her a wrestler now.
yes. Of course, I am going with Lita.
Hmm.
Lita has always been my girl crush until the day she retired. Like I said, I didn't like what they did her later on in her career, especially like the whole when she was with Edge, and then they were like, I don't know. I am more a yes. I understand wrestling has storylines and it's like a soap opera, but at one point they were doing too much of that and not enough wrestling,
Hmm.
and that's what I think happened. But this debate between Trish and Lita, I go with Lita.
Okay. Both of them, both, uh, they don't get where they are if they're not in the same, time. I think they really truly helped each other when they had the time together, and I'm very happy to see that they're very two opposites, besties, best friends. Really sharing that connection. So great. Great story. Go check out on Peacock. They actually have a whole about 45-minute documentary on the rivalry, how they met, how they fought, or how they felt about each other. They showcase a lot of their matches. Um, Great stuff. Absolutely beautiful stuff. So go check that out. It's on Peacock. Okay, so let's move on to the next rivalry, and I think we should start with this because Sandra, I finally got him. I've been waiting. I've been looking all over 7-Elevens, but I actually end up getting him on Mercury. I got my Stone Cold, my Stone Cold Funko Pop. I am a huge Stone. He's my favorite wrestler of all time. So our part one. I had to cover at least one rivalry with him, and you know what? This is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time too, who he battled against, and that's Bret the Hitman Hart. So we are going to be talking Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret the Hitman Hart, and this was a great rivalry. I don't understand why it's not talked about more. This is the early years of Stone Cold. This is like he's feuding not only with Bret, but he's feuding with the Hart Foundation. So you have like Owen. You had I forgot the Bret's brother. You had him feuding with those guys, and this is younger, slimmer, athletic Stone Cold before the injury. So he was going toe to toe with Bret, who is a tactical technician master. So I went back and I watched the matches. Of course, the most iconic match was in, I believe, WrestleMania 13, and that was the what was it? I Quit match, the most iconic match. But they had matches prior to that. There was a match as well. I don't know if it was another WrestleMania. I think it was SummerSlam though, or maybe Survivor Series. It might have been Survivor Series. That one was a long match. That was a good like 25-minute, 30-minute match. So talking about Stone Cold and Bret, what I really appreciate with this match. So talking about that match in particular, a long, grueling match. The storytelling element. They started off slow. They started off with basically, throws, hip tosses, tactical stuff. What Bret's like bread and butter. Bret loves to do tactical stuff, locks, holds. It might seem it could be boring, but you appreciate the fluidness to it. It's very clean. These guys were great. Stone Cold in his younger years, he could do all that stuff without worrying about the neck or anything like that. He wasn't as brawl. He had more of a brawl style later on. So this match is really a storytelling match because they would start off with that, and then like a lot of other matches too, they would build up to the physicality of it, going over the ropes, going through the barricades, really going loving. I always love a standoff where they're just throwing shots at each other. It's just a nice little angle, nice little picture. And then it moves on to a mix of both, a mix of submissions. Of course, you got to throw in the submissions because of the finger four with Bret. Even Stone Cold, he had the what's it called? What was his original move? Was like the Dreamer or the what the $1 million clutch, I believe, or something like
Yeah.
that. So not a lot of people, they thought he was just stunning. Nah, he had a submission hold back in his WCW days, early days in the WWF. So that match and a lot of their segments was great. I think these two, and Bret Hart was a superstar. So this made Stone Cold better. There's a lot of elements in Stone Cold's career that you could say that's how he's becoming a legend. The Jake the Snake Roberts, him telling the famous King of the Ring win, that's one of them. And I think this rivalry was another that really helped Stone Cold be Stone Cold. You look at his resume and all the wrestlers he's faced and he's won against, or he's really just, gone toe to toe with. That resume has Bret Hart. And that's a good resume to have, good matches to have, especially the I Quit match. So, Sandra, what is your thoughts on this rivalry? And out of the two, who would you, I mean, I know Canada. Are you going with your boy Bret Hart on this one?
So again, as Brett is Canadian and we all know about the Hart Foundation, I was
Hmm.
also a Stone Cold Steve Austin fan. If you ask me between the two of them, because as we talked before, I'm an Undertaker girl.
Yes,
But
yes.
between the two, I was a Stone Cold just because the way, not when he was the ringmaster, when he became Stone Cold,
Yeah.
because he was what
Or
everybody wanted to be.
the
He wanted
Hollywood
to.
Blondes with Brian Pillman.
No, no, no.
R.I.P. Brian
I'm
Pillman
so
too.
yes, I'm so glad he shaved his head. Um,
Yeah.
I liked the guy who was the defiant of the bosses, going against the rules, the rule breaker. I like that, but I will not take out the fact that Brett is a legitimate wrestler. He is a wrestler through and through. He got brought up with a family of wrestlers.
Hmm.
You cannot take away that he is a pure wrestler. With that
Absolutely.
said, as much as he's a good wrestler, he's lacking on the whole promo thing, which Stone Cold is the best at it. So now you get again the best of the two worlds, that you have a really good wrestler against a really good talker.
I would argue the fact that I think Stone Cold is a good wrestler as well. At that time, he was more tactical. That's why I
Yes,
like the rivalry because I felt when I was watching these matches, he's really holding his own. They have a
he
good
is.
chemistry. They have a great chemistry together.
And that's what the whole basic is. You need to have chemistry to be able to have a good match between two guys.
Hmm.
And that's what they had. They were able, like you said, telling a whole story with their kind of matches.
Yeah,
And I will, like, as soon as you said that, the only image I can get and I will never get out of my mind is the one of Stone Cold bleeding out and screaming when he's caught into Brett's move.
absolutely beautiful.
That's gonna be the ultimate image. And for the children, they decide to make it on black and white so it's not too gory.
Oh,
Um,
have you noticed that they don't show the chair shots no more?
they do not.
Wow.
They do not.
Yeah, you could like hit somebody with a bell, and all that stuff. I understand with the chair shot thing. I'm glad. I'm
Yeah.
glad they're really kind of not even doing it anymore.
No,
It
and that
it's
was since the whole concussion thing when
yeah,
it got brought up and a lot of wrestlers died and stuff like that. They literally, and that's why you see now it's only on the back,
yeah.
and they make sure that they take the non-real chairs and they just hit it with the face of the flat face on it. So it is something that a normal viewer would not realize, but I'm getting so picky on looking at wrestling matches
Yeah.
that I see that they are taking care of each other, because you know what? So many things happen
Mm-hmm.
that because it's a Stone Cold Bret, we will not talk about the Owen match because we know what happened with that to your boy.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I mean, they worked well and they were very much they were taking care of each other during that fight.
I will say though, we won't talk about that match. We'll save that for another time, and absolutely, we'll save about this. Just going back to those chairs real quick. We'll save. We'll save. I wanted to put this on today, but I said, what, it needs to be covered longer. The infamous Rock and Mankind match. 11 shots to the head, I believe, and it was only
Yeah.
supposed to be 5 kids in the audience. Jesus, man. I mean, yes, it was a grueling, fantastic match, but an the Rock did him dirty on that one, and we'll talk about that matchup and their rivalry, I believe, next time because there's some great moments with the Rock and Mankind, aka Mick Foley. And then going back to the Owen, what's great is that Stone Cold was rivaling, like he was going against the Hart Foundation, and this is the rebellious Stone Cold at this stage. And at this stage, I believe Bret was getting into the his segments was more of he felt like he was getting cheated out of everything, his belt, and which was funny because he was complaining a lot, but he was absolutely right. But nobody liked his, like, I guess you could call it bitchiness. So very funny because he was right most of the time when he was complaining. But so he Bret wasn't the same Bret when he first, with Hulk and all that, the good guy kind of guy. He was getting a little bit more whinier, while Stone Cold was really catching on. He was really that rebellious. I don't care, Bret Hart, get your ass out here. Stone Cold, like he was really, it was really starting to come together with Stone Cold and his character. But you're right, Bret was the better wrestler. But these two, so the I Quit match, let's talk about that. So you had Ken Shamrock as the special guest referee. I really liked Ken Shamrock back in the day. I was a big fan of Ken Shamrock. So he used the special guest referee. I thought it was pretty odd. I think they were moving forward to like a Ken Shamrock and Bret Hart rival, maybe. I can't necessarily remember. But what I do remember is Vince McMahon said he did not want people to cut anymore. And when I'm talking about cut is a lot of people will be surprised. Wrestlers will cut themselves with the razor blade to give you that bloody effect. They cut themselves. Sometimes it happens naturally. There's some Hell in a Cell matches that it just happened. Ric Flair freaking is always bloody. That dude is down. I'm surprised he's still alive. But so Vince did not want this to happen no more. I believe, and Bret and Stone Cold, their backstage relationship was great. They were good. They're not the bestest friends like Trish or Lita, but Stone Cold's thing is business. Can I do business with you? Can we have a good rapport so we can continue doing business? And that's his whole thing. And him and Bret never had an issue. I believe Bret was on his Broken Skull podcast as well. So they had a conversation, and they knew that that Stone Cold would get in trouble if he cut himself. But he said, "Let me see how the match goes. Let me see how the match goes. Depending on how brutal it is and stuff. If I feel it's right, I'll cut myself." He cut himself. Best decision. You know how many promos of just talking about the WWE and they showcase all the matches before. That is the big image. That's probably, other than Mankind flying off the Hell in a Cell, I would say that's up there with the image of world, wrestling entertainment. Stone Cold in the sharpshooter, not giving up, and he passes out. And what not a lot of people know is that Bret Hart was still continuing after the match, and then Shamrock had to intervene. But this is the moment, this is the iconic match where it made Stone Cold the badass we all know and love. Because even though he lost the match, He didn't say I quit. He didn't tap. So out of the two, I love Bret Hart. Don't get me wrong, Sandra. Bret Hart, like, and then of course he goes on and he has him and we'll get into him and Shawn Michaels in the Vince McMahon thing.
Let's,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So let me ask you this question. We both agree Stone Cold is the better of the two. We like Stone Cold better. I think Stone Cold is actually back in the day was a great wrestler, and I'm glad and I applaud him for changing up his wrestling style to suit what he was capable of doing. The brawling aspect works for Stone Cold. It just especially when he's going against Triple H, The Rock. You could even say The Undertaker. But let me ask you this: if Bret Hart was still in the WWF and he didn't go to WCW, do you think that Bret Hart would either be as just because I think Stone Cold would have been as popular as ever anyway if Bret Hart was still in the organization? You knew his star was rising up. Vince was heavily like invested in Stone Cold because Vince famously said Stone Cold's character is basically me. That's what he said. Do you think though Bret Hart would still be the superstar um that I guess he would be in the same level as The Rock and Stone Cold?
Oof. So, oof. There is a side of me that said yes, but another side saying that at that time period, he
Mm-hmm.
was going down in his quality of matches. His
Okay.
quality matches were more into the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So when he left in 97, I think the new breed of The Rock, Stone Cold that was coming up, I don't think you could have put that with Bret. Mind you, is a rivalry that he had with Shawn Michaels and then DX and the whole feud between the two factions.
Yeah.
You saw a lot more of blabbling promo outside stuff than actual wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
because it was all like when then you had like the whole Canada US thing, and then you had the whole Shawn Michaels stepping on the Canadian flag and putting up to his nose and stuff like that. For me, I, as much as it was for getting the ratings, I don't think that's something that Bret was going for, and that's not something Bret was really comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So the and also at that time that was like the whole like war with WCW. So I don't think
Monday Night
having
Wars.
Bret,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so Bret as a wrestler from the 90s, I don't think he would have been able to be at the level of the Stone Cold and The Rock in that period of the Attitude Era. But that's just my opinion.
I think he would have been as good as Shawn Michaels in that era. Like not the star, not the man. So Shawn Michaels continued, right? He continued,
Yes.
put on great matches, especially with Kurt Angle. I think Bret would be like that because he could. I could see him doing a match with The Rock. I could see him because The Rock is athletic. The Rock is he got better too as he went along. The Rock could carry a match. I could see him doing a match with Edge. I could see him doing a match with Kurt Angle, especially Kurt Angle. Oh, that would have
Angle,
been
yes.
oh,
Yeah.
would have been a fantastic match. But I actually could. He wouldn't have been the man. But I could see his popularity still being like a Shawn Michaels level, where fans know because wrestling fans know if
Yeah.
you're a wrestling fan, you're still paying homage to the greats. So I think they would have
Yes.
still rocked with Bret. Even when Bret went to WCW, those ratings rose because he went to WCW. Now WCW really butchered everything with Bret, and then
They
the injuries
didn't know
got
what
to
to
him.
do with him.
That's WCW in a nutshell. Didn't know what to do with the Ultimate Warrior, all that stuff. But I always had the idea of like, oh my god, you had DX, you could have had DX, you could have had you could have had DX rivalry with. I feel like the Hart Foundation would have been like he could have made a new Hart Foundation, and they could have had like this rival like an NWO type deal in the WWF. You know, you could have had rivals. He didn't have to. He could have been the leader of a new kind of like Hart Foundation kind of deal going on there. Stone Cold though, all the way. I think Stone Cold is I love the rivalry. I love the matches. I think the match, if you want really good, solid, and you want to see the process of Stone Cold, and you want to see the prime Bret Hart, you got to check out that rivalry. But I think we agree Stone Cold. But I want to move on to this. So how crazy would it have been if Bret Hart was in the NWO? How crazy would if Vince would have got that got WCW right from the get go and NWO came to WWF, and you would have had that NWO versus like DX, all this craziness, right? But we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into the debate here. All right, this is a real. I guess this is a real true debate. So we're gonna talk a little WCW here. I know we don't cover a lot of WCW. We will because there's a lot of good stuff. There is a lot of good stuff over there. But these are two factions on the Monday Night Wars that were going. I mean, that are huge in both companies. At one side, you have DX, which is kind of insane to think about it. But the members of the NWO were super tight with Sean and Hunter. So technically, you have members kind of opposite each other. Xbox switching on both sides. So DX, right? DX formed by Triple H, Shawn Michaels, gets revamped in the later 90s with China, X-Pac, rejuvenates the careers of Billy Gunn, or the Ass. He should have just kept Billy Gunn. And Road Dogg, if you
But
don't
hold on
know.
a second. Remember, the original DX, Ravishing Rick Rude was part of it.
That's true. That's true. They had quite a bit of members. I think they had a couple other members that you kind of like were what? So yes, but then you have the other side. This is a debate. Who's the bigger faction? Because NWO was huge for WCW. I think they lasted that long just because of the introduction of NWO. And Sandra, who were the members of NWO in the beginning?
The original NWO was Kevin Nash, Scott
Mm-hmm.
Hall, and Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And then remember, he was just Hulk Hogan, and everybody was wondering who was the other member, and then he
The
revealed
third
himself to
member.
be the third member. So these guys, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, were originally in WWF, went to WCW because WCW was paying everybody way too much money. And they formed the New World Order. I I never really watched WCW when I was a kid. My uncles loved WCWs. We would constantly have fights, which is another debate another time. Who's better, Stone Cold or Goldberg? But I knew when I saw that black and white, even the red and black, that's NWO. I knew what NWO was. So NWO was huge. So I'm going to ask you, Sandra, here we go. Who is the better out of the two? Which faction are you rocking with? Are you rocking with D-Generation X? Fantastic theme song, by the way. Or are you
Yes.
rocking with Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and the other 100 members down the line that joined NWO? Are you rocking NWO?
Okay, so let's make it clear because my decision has to be at a certain limit.
Okay.
I We have to go with the original because if we start adding the plus and plus and plus, then it's like watering down
It
alcohol.
got ridiculous. It
So
absolutely got ridiculous.
correct. So let's go with the original. So the original was Kevin Nash, Scott
Scott
Hall,
Hall,
Hollywood
Hulk,
Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan.
Original DX. The original DX was called as of Triple H, Shawn Michaels, China, and Ravishing Rick Rude. That was the original.
I'm gonna go with the '90s one, more of the '90s, because I love Road Dogg and Billy Gunn. So I'm
Well,
gonna compare
yes.
those two. I'm gonna compare those
Okay,
two
so you want to add those two into this?
because I think that run was longer. That run was, I think that run with that group was a little bit longer. So let's say height of popularity, right? So I
Yes.
think I think NWO, the original members, it was so fresh, so new, and it took those Monday Night Wars to a whole new level. So I'm gonna say
Oh,
yes on
totally.
the original NWO members, and I'm gonna say that the Triple H led Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, China, X Pac, that took it
So
to a
you're
whole new level.
okay. So you're taking the X back out when he was eight. Was it eight ball or six ball or something along the line? And
Him
then he
known
went.
him as he was X Pac.
Okay, so you want him after when he got back to the WWE after he got his FedEx letter termination from Eric Bischoff. Okay, got it.
So my DX is that group,
Okay,
including
so
especially with China because China
yes,
was just like that it's in my head and I'm just thinking about the all of them standing together. How can you
yeah,
not think of them when you say DX, right?
yes,
As
and
much as I
when
love Sean.
so as much as you so you just mentioned for me mentioning that lineup brings me the episode of Raw when they went and invaded WCW with the tank, and that they wanted to have NWO coming out and having the two faction in one show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Iconic segment.
Iconic. And now just finding out that Kevin in his he talked to that on his
Broken
skull
Skull
session
sessions. Yeah, I didn't
with
see the
Stone
episode, but
Cold.
yeah.
Yes, he talked about it and he says he actually was on the other side of that garage door. He wanted to be part of it. He was
Yeah.
asking, open that door, and WCW said no,
No. Yeah.
because that would have been a first time ever having a WCW guy in the broadcast of
There's
WWF
a lot of
at the
legal
time.
issues. A lot of
Yes.
legal because before Kevin and Scott can go to WCW, they would make their appearances, but they wouldn't use their names. I believe they did or
Well,
something like that.
so basically, when they left WWE, F, what they were Diesel and they were Razor Ramon.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that's why when they showed up on WCW, it was right away. Oh my God, this is Kevin Dash and Scott Hall
Hmm.
right away. And that was before. So then when they came together, the first timers, that's when they were the outsiders, which
Yes.
WCW people thought that they were paid by WWE to be spies into WCW.
Yeah, and that's not happened. That's happened before or after, I believe, a couple times, I believe. But yeah, yeah, yeah. So who you rocking with, Sandra? Who we rocking with?
I'm trying to deflect you to not answer that question.
You gotta answer it.
Okay, I will go that as much as I love Kevin Nash and he is one of the nicest guy ever, my favorite
Ooh,
faction at that line was DX.
okay. I'm gonna go NWO. We're
Good.
gonna we're
Let's
gonna
have
debate
that debate.
we're gonna debate this. As
Yes.
much as I love DX and how I made my cases on Triple H and the whole tank and all that, I'm gonna say NWO was bigger. Was was it necessarily better? Not later on. In the beginning, it probably was, and I believe DX kind of copied a little bit of their
I
stuff.
was going to say NW was the original. So
Yeah,
yes,
and NWO was the
definitely
original.
definitely DX was created and was born because
Was
of
the counter?
NWO.
Yeah, and that's how. I mean, it's not a knock because they were doing that back and forth.
Yes.
Hell, Goldberg is supposed to be a lot of other even I guess answer to a lot of other wrestlers in WWF. I'm gonna say NWO because NWO is just that big of a name. Uh, I don't know where Kevin Nash was a sweetheart. There's a lot of backstage politics that guy wasn't involved. That was involved. A lot of those old those guys were whispering in a lot of young guys' ear. Bill Goldberg, really kind of screwing over like really making it all about me, them. You know.
Okay, let's get this straight, okay? There is a lot of he said, she said. There's a lot of rumors.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stories about everything. I love Kevin Nash. Met him several times. He is just the best.
I think Kevin
But
Nash. Yeah,
okay, but Kevin Nash is in for himself and for the money.
absolutely,
He
absolutely.
always said it. He never denied that. He
I never
said
knew you
if
met Kevin Nash.
yes, I met
Oh,
him several times.
that's cool.
Um,
I met
and
China.
yes,
I met
I
China.
met her once, but she it was in the time that she was not very nice. But
Okay,
that's another story.
she
But
was. Yeah.
Kevin Nash is for Kevin Nash and for money.
Hmm.
Same thing with Scott Hall. Scott Hall is in for the
Same thing with
money.
Hulk Hogan. All three of them were destined to be together.
Correct. So Kevin wanted to stay with WWE. But when Eric Bischoff offered him a contract, which because in WWE the guys were paid by appearances and matches.
WW.
WCW were built they were paid by a base salary. That's your contract whether you work 1 day or 300 days. That's what I'm paying you for.
WWE is a independent contract. So that's why when you see a lot of people released, they have that 30-day clause where they can't appear on anything or do anything via like their character or whatever.
Yeah. So Kevin Nash, he's not stupid. If you're gonna pay me more than what WWE's giving me with not doing anything,
Yeah.
anybody would take that. So he did, and that's why I will never say that Kevin was all for the wrestling. No, because wrestling was never even in his mind growing up. He never thought to be a wrestler. It
Yeah.
was just brought up because he was big, he was tall.
Yeah. The same. It's like Tess. Tess was a bodyguard, I believe.
Yes.
And they who saw, I think it was it Kevin Nash. I don't know. Not Kevin Nash. Somebody saw him and they're like, "Oh, we're bringing you into. We want you in this." Same with Sheamus. Sheamus was, I think, workout buddy of Triple H, and then Triple H brought him over. Uh,
Yeah.
but
So
but yes,
so
yeah, go for it.
so for me, like there's a lot of things negative. There's a lot of stories that are not correct.
Hmm.
Kevin was very open on saying all that in the Broken Skull session that you can view in WWE Network for outside of US,
Hmm.
Peacock with for the US. But he said it. He says, but the one thing that was not true is that he is the one who wrote the match against Goldberg. He never wrote the match against Goldberg. He was not the booker for that match.
He was
He
definitely in the
never
committee. A lot of people don't know he was in the committee of. He was in that room with a lot of big decisions that were being made.
yes.
Eric
But he
Bischoff.
never he never
Yeah.
had he never had the contract of Hulk Hogan to be making sure that to deny a storyline. He was never in that. He never had that contract.
I think Hulk Hogan is he knows how to play that political game. He did a lot of so NWO. All right,
Yes.
the leader is Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Hulk Hogan wanted to be I'm the leader. Hulk Hogan's the leader, which is the right move. Hulk Hogan should be the leader because he's the bigger name. Even though Kevin Nash was huge in WWF when
Yeah.
he was Diesel.
He was.
So you have Diesel, you have Hulk, Scott Hall, Scott Razor Ramon. You know he has a name to him. I think he's the lesser of the two. You got to remember though, Scott Hall had some problems. Luckily, he found the light. He's absolutely doing so much better with the help of DDP. DDP is able to change people's lives, man. Good for him. But at the time, Scott Hall, and these, so the NWO, this is how you know you have Eric Bischoff by the balls, or you just overall are the most popular thing to hit. They literally had a pay per view, and this is a long pay per view of it's the NWO pay per view. I believe Degeneration X had one too.
Yes, they
I,
did.
I I can't remember if that was after NWO had one, because
Yes, yes,
in a sense they're copying NWO on there.
yes.
So NWO gets their own pay per view. Was it good? Not really, but they get their own pay per view, and then you have just this big, just this freaking missile and hits W. They're the ones that really get the ratings going. They're the ones that get the merchandise going. The key thing, if you ask me who's gonna merchandise wise, I think, yes, I think WWE had the bigger platform of toys and all that stuff. I think they were doing better with the toys and everything. But I think people wanted the NWO merch because it's black, it's white, it's this rebelliousness too. Eric Bischoff, at first you get more new members. Like NWO to me was the bigger faction. Was probably the hard, I guess, the how you got to compare them to. I think Degeneration X though was the more entertaining of the faction.
Well, let's put it this way. The NWO started the is it scripted or is it real life? They are the one who started, they are the one who blurred the line because nobody knew if it was real or it was not.
Mm-hmm.
They were what brought the competition to WWE.
Yes.
But after in 1998, NWO was also what killed WCW. We're not
Yes.
we're not gonna hide that. They were because at the end you had 100 members of NWO, and they were just beating up on a lot of good core wrestlers that WCW had.
And then you would have those core wrestlers join NWO or a different branch.
Okay, let's go
And
with the Latino, the LWO, the Latino World Order, and then you had the Wolfpack NWO, and
yeah.
then you had 17 different kind of NWO, which
Mm-hmm.
that's what basically killed WCW at the end of the day.
Yeah. So it was a live and let kind of die thing kind of thing.
Yeah.
So NWO, what I really liked about NWO though was the overall look. Beautiful transformation from Hulk Hogan to Hollywood Hulk Hogan. I really like the design of his look. I think it was a simple look for the guys, but it worked. I think Hollywood was more of the flashier type. And then you have Degeneration X. Out of the two theme songs, Degeneration X has the best theme song, I think. One of the best theme songs I've ever heard.
Yes.
Degeneration. I remember, I think it was one of the WrestleManias when Triple H was going against somebody, and they actually had the live band when he was coming out. Him in
Yes.
China. So very awesome. So what I really appreciate on Degeneration X, I think NWO was the bigger of the faction because the name, the movement. You like you said, they were first on everything. They just they were the go-to to watch for WCW in those early years. Where Degeneration was a nice, I don't want to say bonus, but they contributed. They didn't start and they didn't do anything new, but they contributed to a lot of good rivals, a lot of good segments. I think that's what.
Well, that's where you have NWO that blurred the line between reality and fiction.
Yeah,
WWE went with the really like you would never think they would do that in television,
they were
primetime television.
they pushed it.
They pushed the limit. They pushed like how many complaints did they have?
I
because of the
yeah.
stuff they were actually saying and doing. Because one is the barbecue cookout. Come on, you everybody knows that segment
Mm-hmm.
with the sausages and everything. Well, that was like as much as you can do then like not going with the whole
Yeah.
okay, sausage equals what?
Exactly. Well, exactly. The and then Hunter would push it. He wanted it. He wanted to do all this. So out of the two factions, guess who had the best script writers? Guess who had the better writers? WWF. WCW. That's another reason why they failed was the writing was terrible.
Uh,
But then
are
WW.
we gonna are we gonna mention the name Vince Russo?
I was gonna say Vince Russo. Um, it's not like WWF wasn't had their bad stuff because they had some bad shit back in the Attitude Era. But I know you have Vince Russo and you have Jim Cornette. Vince Russo will forever be like the most despised dude. He can work magic. He's the one that created the idea of. He's the one that brought to Vince like, hey man, we need to make this like a Jerry Springer type kind of show. Okay, but then but then he does like then he makes a tournament where actual wrestlers box each other and wrestlers actually get hurt. The dumbest idea ever. So anyway, but I will say I think DX had one of the better definitely segments because I mean I still remember also when Hunter was dressed as The Rock. Oh, that day you smell what I was cooking. Like I thought that was hilarious. It's so stupid,
When
but it's
DX
hilarious.
when DX were the Nation of Domination. The
Yeah,
whole bunch were all dressed up as them. And again, that was in the 90s, 2000. You would not be able to pull that out today.
there was a little racial stuff in that segment. So yeah, they're really pushing that shit. NWO, I felt like when I go back and I watch a lot of the NWO stuff, it felt like free reign. It didn't it felt like they were what's that word I'm trying to use? It felt like they weren't really scripted, that they were kind of sometimes they were just doing their own thing.
Yes.
I think NWO was like more of the chillest faction. They just always came out like they were just like, yeah, I'm cool. Like they always came out very chill, while DX came out very angry.
Yeah.
So Sandra,
And hold on, let's put on the top of it the biggest surprise of all that was not a surprise is having the president of WCW being part of the NWO with Eric Bischoff.
yeah, yeah. Um, Poor Eric Bischoff just didn't know how to run that stuff. Like you know what, I honestly think WCW would have worked if it was handled so much better. If
Well,
they didn't, if NWO doesn't branch out as much as they do, that was the I think that's
yeah,
the death of it because they just didn't. They branched out way too. You keep it
yeah,
simple, and honestly, you break up the group, and a lot of times they do that. You break up the group, and down the line, like DX, I think they did it freaking 3 times. Bring them back. Bring them back. Sandra, why is DX better than NWO?
I think you just hit it. They were at maximum, they were the New Age Outlaws, you had the original DX, and you had X Pac. You
Hmm.
never multiplied it by 17 million people that everybody was a DX. They kept it as that limit, and you
Yeah.
were, and also you had like, okay, and New Age Outlaws, they had their own thing going on with like when they were going for the tag team championship, and you could spin like anything with DX, but they were also individuals.
Hmm.
NWO became a big freaking deal, and everybody was NWO. And
Yeah.
it was like, and everybody had to freaking walk down the aisle. So it took 10 minutes for everybody to jump into the ring when there was something going on. I like better DX just because it was okay. As when they had that group, that was the group, that was DX, and that was it. And also, they didn't take 2 hours of the show. They had their segment and then they moved on and they had other wrestlers that they were able to show. NWO, it was them for 3 hours. Oh, let's put like 2 minutes of Chris Benoit against Eddie Guerrero, or let's put like good matches of like the cruiserweight. But then they got beat up at NWO. It was just at one point it was just too much.
You hit it over the head. Even though the 2 hours, I'm gonna say that NWO has the bigger legacy because they were WCW at that time. They were absolutely WCW. If I could compare the two, I'm gonna say that the Degeneration X was Rolling Stones, and the NWO was the Beatles. That's how I would.
Oof.
That's how I would compare. Now, I'm not saying greatest music wise because I would even argue the fact that Degeneration X, like you said, they were in and out, so they were the more entertaining out of the group. But what I'm saying is attitude and overall, not attitude, but overall, like maybe a little bit of popularity. Where Rolling
Yes,
Stones, you have this, they're so good. You love their music, you love their wildness to them. Mick Jagger, who's this Mick Jagger guy? And then you have the NWO, the Beatles lands touchdowns and everybody is fawning all over them. They're like NWO, you know. They're not a lot of people know that the Beatles did drugs. The Beatles were wild, but they were super popular. Like they were taking over stuff. And what does the NWO do? They take over shit. Yet they're still
but
wild.
let me ask you a question now to you. So NWO was WCW
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and DX was part of WWE.
Yes.
How would you have liked to have DX having the same time as NWO, the 2 full hours? What do you do with your Rock, your Undertaker, your Stone Cold Steve Austin? Do you let them? Do you let them getting beat up by DX every freaking week?
Well, I guess to compare it to the pay per views because both of them failed. DX was terrible too.
Yes, but I'm just
Um,
thinking. I'm talking on a week-to-week basis because WCW, that's what it was. As
I'm
soon
gonna.
as NWO was not on the screen and somebody else, they came and they beat them up.
It's hard to say because the like I said, I think what killed WCW was the writing, the booking, the overall storylines. WWF had better storylines. But then again, WCW, even though they had Sting, Goldberg, dude, I love Scott Steiner. He's a freaking nut. That
They
guy's a
were all
nut.
NWO at the end of the day.
Not only that, they still weren't on the same level as Stone Cold, The Rock, hell, even The Undertaker.
Oh,
They,
I agree.
I just think that look at it. I guess you have to pinpoint when Mankind won the WWE Championship, and that's the day that WCW shot themselves in the foot and
Yeah,
killed anything. But
yeah.
look at that pop! Look at the pop on that crowd compared to the crowd at WCW.
Oh,
Look at all the entrances when Stone Cold comes out and The Rock comes out. Look at the merchandise. Like there was no way that even though WCW had Sting and they had Goldberg, I'm sorry. I love Sting. I would have loved Sting in his prime at WWF, but these guys were just not on the same level. They were
correct.
not.
But that's what I'm saying. Back to my question. Would that happen if DX would take always every week the 2 hours fully like NWO?
Sandra,
No.
here's the thing. It would never happen. Because one, you may hate him, he's an asshole. You're gonna leave his company one way or another, but you're always gonna come back because Vince knows he knows business. He knows what he's doing. He knows I ain't gonna have, even though DX is the hottest thing over here too, I ain't gonna have them overshadow even hotter stuff. Why would you do that? That was the problem with WCW. Eric
Exactly.
Bischoff, as much as I love the concept, as much as I think, NWO is the bigger legacy out of the two, he messed up
Yeah,
constantly. He
he killed
was
it.
lazy at it. He was lazy. You hear the stories. Hear the stories of like Eric Bischoff. There's a great video out there by Wrestling Bios. He just made this video on when Chris Jericho was in WCW and he wanted to do a rivalry with Bill Goldberg. But they said it's not, or Bill Goldberg was having a hissy fit on it because Chris Jericho was making fun of him. So he went to Eric Bischoff. There was like movement on that rival, like people were in it, like they were into it, but they squashed that rivalry before it even blossomed. And then he's like, dude, you're not gonna do okay, you know what? I'm just gonna. That's the difference. That is absolutely so. I can't say Vince would ever do that, but let's say Eric Bischoff was at W and he was head, and he did that, right? Let's say if Eric Bischoff was the chairman at WWF and he had DX and all that stuff, it'd be the same thing with NWO. It would be a complete mess. You would overshadow. Not only did you have Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker. Look at the lineup. WWF had a better lineup than
They did.
WCW. WCW had older wrestlers. While it's funny to say at the time, but WWF had this younger generation. Hell, Undertaker was younger at that time, and he was still at his prime. So we got to do a video on why WC did that. But I'm just saying it would never happen because you could just see the two business like mentality. I do
Yeah.
appreciate Eric Bischoff really spending the money to get a lot of these guys over here and giving some creative freedom. He gave creative freedom, but man, did he fuck up. He messed up so
Well,
bad.
he fuck up because if you're giving a guarantee contract to one guy, you have to do that with everybody else. And then you became like with 150 guys that had a contract like that, and everybody wanted to do whatever they wanted, and that's when it went out. It completely like blew up.
WCW died. There's a
Yeah,
reason why WCW died.
yeah.
WCW died. That's a great name, WCW. I like that name more than I like AEW or NXT or even WWE.
Let's not touch AEW right now. That's gonna be in full other show because now I'm getting psyched up with the AEW.
I'm
So
just saying,
not touching.
WCW has a sexy name to it. It's a sexier name. It's a more like t-shirt type of name. I'll
But
rock it.
it's funny. WCW when it was just WCW, nobody still was watching it.
Well, they were. I mean, the wars. They were at one point they were beating WWF. They were beating WWF at the ratings. Absolutely.
At when it was NWO. As a single WCW, they
Oh,
never
well, yeah,
beat the
yeah, yeah,
rankings.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I get what you're
I'm
saying.
just talking
Yes,
about WCW, like
yeah.
when you had like Kevin
Overall,
Nash being
when
being
you
Oz
had
or
Sting
Vinny
not being the
Vegas.
Crow Sting, and when you had Ric Flair in there, absolutely,
Correct.
absolutely. So I'm gonna go NWO on this one, just because me being such a huge WWF fan, even I knew who the NWO was. I just think they just had a better, or not better, a more impact in just wrestling overall. I'm not saying DX is not right there. I could even agree you saying DX is better than NWO because they both brought so much to the table. I just think it's just a little bit bigger in my opinion. NWO, and I love the three. I love Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan. Before we end this, I'm just gonna talk a little bit. So we're gonna talk a little bit. At one point, NWO did cross over to WWE because Vince bought them out. So I'm just gonna ask you, Sandra, what was your whole thing on that? Which is funny because Hunter is there, Triple H, and they're all good. Sean's there, and there is a one segment that they're all like NWO. X Pac is now in the NWO, and they're all just kind of like, wait. Triple H has a match. He comes out, and they're all just like, oh, Shawn Michaels. becomes an NWO member too, and they all like kind of hug and stuff because they're all friends in real life. What's your thoughts
Correct.
on that?
I I believe that's just my opinion. That was something that Vince thought would be the best thing, and it didn't do nothing for me because it's just recycling something that was good back in the day, hoping that you're bringing it back.
Yeah,
As much as I love DX, the second, third, fourth generation of it was never as what the original. And that's the same thing with movies and sequels.
yeah,
Nothing is as bad as good as the original. So
but
for me,
yeah,
bringing it back, it was more sentimental
yes.
than bringing back what it was originally.
And you got to remember, when they brought NWO in, X Pac was already or he became an NWO member. People wanted. We talk about rivalries. I mean, I would. This is more of a debate because these factions never fought each other. They never went at each other. And the only case you can make, I guess, I would pin the what we were talking about all this time, the Triple H, China, Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, X Pac against the original three. You could maybe put in like Bret Hart when he came in and he went NWO. Just to give it a little bit more of a balance of how many people are, wrestlers against wrestlers because that'd be it'd be three against what, five or whatever. But at that time they couldn't do it. I think China wasn't there, or she was. It wasn't really there, honestly. Billy Gunn and Road Dogg. The problem. X Pac says this all the time. I think it was X Pac, and a lot of people will talk about it. A lot of people know about it. The DX that I'm talking about with China and stuff, they dispatched way before they dispatched when they could have kept going a little bit longer. And that's what X Pac and Road Dogg and Billy Gunn were like mad about, was because like, dude, we're making all this money, and Triple H wanted to do his singles career. He wanted to be the game, and that in order to do that, he needed to let go of this faction. So that, and then of course him and
But
Stephanie.
also, something that I think was also the fact that they dismantled everything is that X-Pac and Road Dogg didn't even know what was happening. They were so high in drugs that if you ask Road Dogg, he doesn't remember half of what happens in DX in those years because he was always on drugs. And
Yeah.
that will help, and that is very dangerous if you wrestle and you don't know what you're doing for the other wrestler.
Well, Eddie Guerrero too. Eddie Guerrero. So yeah, I mean, it was breaking up, and then you had the Stephanie and Triple H thing.
Yeah.
Uh, China was pissed. So
Well, again, the things blur the reality to fiction, and
mhm.
that's what Vince was good at it. And China was with Triple H at the beginning, and then he
Yeah.
started dating the daughter of the boss. And what do you think China felt like?
Well, China found a love letter, and then
So
what? So do you think it's a coincidence that China got let go?
there's nope.
Yeah.
It's
Like I
everything is everything has a reason behind it.
like I said, there's a lot of backstage stuff. I think I'm more interested in a lot of that drama now that I'm older and knowing the facts and knowing what went down than like when I watched it, because you get a sense of that's reality
Yeah.
while you're watching the story. So you can never get an NWO Degeneration X, like a proper match. As it's just it never happened. It never happened when they came over. But so real quick, going back onto the when the NWO came to the WWE and it just wasn't the same. You're absolutely right. It wasn't the same. I think a good analogy on the movies. I think after so much time, you can bring back that movie either as a soft reboot or as a sequel. Worked for Jurassic World, worked for Star Wars: The Force Awakens. So what I'm saying, Sandra, I would actually would love to see because I believe Vince owns now the NWA, right? The rights and stuff,
Yes.
merchandise and all that. I would, yeah, he does because it's on Peacock. I would love to see a new D Generation X with and a new NWO. And I would love to start the rivalry, a proper rivalry. I'm not talking about bringing Triple H, Shawn Michaels back, or Hollywood Hulk Hogan. You can to set it up. I want to see. I want to see that. I want to see new members bringing back. Why the hell not? Because a lot of the new shit they're coming up with is not working. I want to see some badass faction rivalries, and having a little nostalgia doesn't hurt. Heart Foundation, you already had some of the Heart Natalia in there, you know, and you know what? That could be the answer to maybe why not have both members be both women and men on the Degeneration side, the NWO side, hell, even the Heart Foundation side. I want to see it come back, Sandra, because I think enough time has passed.
I would like to have factions, but I would not go with the names. And just because if you are bringing the names back, it's again, and like you said, like a reboot with different characters, it's never the same. I'm okay with factions, definitely factions, but I would not bring back the names because then you're going to start with the compare. And you don't want that. You want something
Well,
like
that's all
I,
about risk. I
it
think.
is a risk, but
Uh huh.
at this point right now, WWE cannot do anymore
Okay.
because if they are going with the risk and they fail, they're going to go down really bad.
Okay, I'll give you that one. So I don't think when I say I'm saying that maybe time needs to go more because I could see a storyline where what is NWO New World Order,
Yeah.
and maybe somebody taking up that New World Order, and then you could implement the Degeneration X who don't follow that order because they're always the rebellious side, and you could have that rivalry. But I get what you're saying because I'm saying you're absolutely the wrestlers of today just wouldn't be able to do it justice. That at least storyline because there's no wrestlers. They haven't properly even done any of these characters right. The only one I could think of that could maybe be in a DX new generation or NWO, I would say more DX is that Finn Balor. I think Finn Balor could be a great Degeneration X member. Hell, if Bryant Wyatt was still there, maybe he,
But also remember, back in the 90s, they crossed a lot of lines that you couldn't cross right now.
that is very true. It's you know what you make a great point. It's very hard because you're in a PG kind of era.
You cannot bring like the racial thing, you cannot bring the women thing, you cannot do anything of those things. So bring what DX did back in the 90s right now,
Well,
please, that wouldn't go.
you're absolutely right. So but I think the NWO could work. I
The
think no,
NWO, yes, can
and
work because they were, like I said, they were blurring the reality to fiction.
yeah,
Because when they went and took over Jay Leno's, people didn't know if it was scripted or it was real.
yeah.
Like that's what NWO was compared to DX that was crossing the line and pushing what they can do and not do. And to be honest, Vince was against it at the beginning, but because he couldn't say no to Shawn Michaels, he's like, okay, guys, do whatever you want. And then
Yeah.
he saw the popularity and he says, okay, we got something going here for the Monday Night War. But originally, Vince was not touching anything that was putting on the table for that.
You're absolutely right on the DX front because they did when Hunter and Sean got back together, and it was not the same because it just wasn't as ballsy. I guess you could say, like you said, You can't do what you did in the '90s. So
because
Degeneration
even
X probably as good as dead for sure.
because look at Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels of the 90s was freaking brutal, and there was nothing stopping him, and he was doing whatever he wanted, whatever whenever he wanted. The second generation of Shawn Michaels, he was the goofy one that couldn't remember nothing. And he says,
Hmm.
"Oh, let's do this." He was goofy. He was not the Shawn Michaels of the 90s
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
DX guy.
I would like to see the NWO come back though. That'd be kind of cool, or another Heart Foundation because Heart Foundation's been there for a while. So
Yes.
I don't know, but okay, we're gonna end it there. So that's part one. We're gonna have some more talk on part two. Get some new rivalries in here, talk debate a little bit more. But I think the next video we do, we'll definitely talk about the status and the state of WWE. We can even talk a little bit of AEW and how they're booming. So I want to thank
Yes.
Sandra for joining me. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Till next time, guys, you guys have a good one. Enjoy your weekend. And I'm Dan Make